Holy shit.
Dragon Ball games have pretty much stuck to the status quo, making it as action-packed as possible. Nowadays, it can come from all different types of genres. Dragon Ball The Breakers is a neat survival-like action game that lets you have a Frieza complex. Dragon Ball Legends is graphically impressive for being on mobile, and more recently, they are testing the waters of a MOBA game featuring your favorite characters. To that, I say,
I don't care how good it is, I am not playing a League of Legends clone.
there's nothing wrong with the series having multiple genres as it can broaden people's horizons. I'm all for Bandai Namco trying something new rather than making a sequel, although I'm not against the idea of Fighters 2. There is one series in particular that is a big part of my childhood, a trilogy that is well known, well received, seeing it grow from simple beginnings to iconic status. It makes me question why they never re-released them in modern times. The Budokai Tenkaichi series, or Sparking as it's called in Japan. They looked at Budokai that is 2.5D and said, what if we round that number up? It's a 3D arena fighter that lets you play Dragon Ball like no other, flying around at sonic speed while pummeling your opponents with so much force you can feel it. There have been anime arena fighters before, but Tenkaichi redefined the genre thanks to how intense the combat is. How it is with other anime properties is another story. But back in the day, this was peak gaming for me. Coming from the Budokai series, it's a nice change of pace as you don't have a fixed combo to activate supers. There are a plethora of moves to keep the combo going. You can send your opponent flying with a heavy attack and can bounce them around. Having the ability to perform follow-up attacks, you can get some hits in and have the opponent staggered enough to fire a finishing move. Each character has 2 supers and 1 ultimate, along with 2 separate moves that will cost your point gauge. In order to win, you have to get your opponent's health to 0. It's crazy how intense it is by making it 3D and having the maps big as shit. I believe this is the first Dragon Ball game that lets us go underwater. I don't know how they can survive in it for that long and get a workout. Same as in space. Seriously, do they use Ki as breathing masks or something? This was a game changer from its predecessors, being able to move around like never before. It was ahead of its time, and it got better and better with each new entry. Let's start with the first Budokai Tenkaichi. This is so ass. While it is visually impressive from its time, something about it rubs me the wrong way. I can't tell if Vegeta and Goku are vibing with their match or playing with their Shenrons. Either way, they are turning each other on. The models here don't look that great in my opinion. I think it's because of the weird lighting that gives them a glossy look, and it's not my cup of tea. The action and set pieces are pretty good, but it doesn't match the actual game. Side note, why does Frieza look so stupid here? He is making his presence known with that up walk. This game has 64 playable characters to choose from. It has your typical standard modes like Versus, Options, and World Tournament. We have the new Z items that resemble Patara earrings, and these give you stat boosts for your character when you play as them. The stats cap at level 7 and can equip up to 7 items. I do prefer these over skills as it doesn't have to be equipped to use certain moves. You can also fuse them to make new, stronger items or unlock new characters. Rare that they have certain characters unlocked this way, but hey, it's neat. You get them by clearing battles and missions, mostly from here. The Z Battle Gate is this game's story mode where the arcs are separated by gates. Going into one, it gives you a breakdown of the arc you're about to play. You go through multiple one-on-one fights until you get to the epilogue that will unlock the next gate. Each fight has its own stipulation. Win the fight, defeat the opponent with a specific finishing move, survive the battle, etc. You don't have to do every fight, but it's nice to use different characters and obtain items after you clear it. Now it's time for the fights themselves. These are the next level. These are the next evolution. An evolution that will change the trajectory of future Dragon Ball games to
I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, this game sucks.
This is so lame. I know this is the first game, but it lacks the intense action the series is known for. You have an attack button that's used for a barrage of punches and kicks, a stun attack, an air-based ki attack, and a heavy attack. What's ridiculous is you can just attack and stun for eons until you feel like using a super. It's funny you can do this, but it breaks the game in immersion for me. The supers are not interesting. You charge your ki when you're holding a specific button instead of back and guard. You need to press a certain button combination and enough ki to perform a super. Charging it to the max will let you use your ultimate. The supers are neat looking, but they are pretty much the same. Certain characters like Goku and Piccolo have unique supers, but the majority of the roster have the same moves, such as full power energy wave, full power energy ball, high speed rush, high power rush. At least make them more interesting or have different names to give the illusion it's different. I will give the game this. The graphics are really cool. I like how detailed they are with the proportions. I think it was a necessary step in getting to look like the series proper. I love that you can destroy pillars, mountains, and buildings. The fact that you can actually go underwater and fight is something they did not need to do, but I appreciate the inclusion. What really sells me is they can actually suffer battle damage while fighting, seeing some dark marks, torn off parts of their clothing, and showing a little bit of blood. It gives these battles higher stakes. Sucks that the presentation is lackluster. When you enter a battle, both characters just talk to each other. There are scenes with movement from time to time, but it doesn't happen nearly enough. If you're playing every single battle, you will get tired of seeing the same two characters standing around over and over and over again. Just play the required matches and then go back to the other ones that you're missing if you're that sadistic. Important note, for the survival battles, you have to have both characters alive in order to get the success. What I mean is, if you beat your opponent, it does not count as a win. Stupid, I know, but those are the rules, I suppose.
Did my game crash? It's not moving at all. Like, what the hell? Oh. I guess it's not. Huh. That was weird.
Majority of your time will be spent in the gates, but there is an ultimate battle that is a tower mode of sorts. You choose your strongest character and go through a gauntlet of battles to reach number 1. At times, someone a few ranks higher will challenge you, and if successful, you will rank up based on where the opponent is. Nothing to write home about, but it's something to kill some time. I appreciate there are gates where you play as the villains and certain characters finally made their presence known in the DBZ game, like Birder, Jason, Goldo. It does have cool ideas, but the execution is not great. You're better off not playing this one. It did come out 11 months after the release of Budokai 3, so I believe the time was not the essence for the developers. Luckily, this was the blueprint for the series going forward. They had the general sense of what they want with this game, so let's see what they did with the next one. I originally played the first one at a friend's house. I grew up as a Nintendo kid. I will say, this is one of the coolest looking box arts I have ever seen. Having Trunks as the main portrait might not have been a wise choice, but then his sword shows the reflection of the evolution of Goku, from OG to Z to GT. I hope the game can reflect the box art. Spoiler alert, it does. Budokai Tenkaichi's 2 opening is solid. The first one is better with its presentation, but I like the second one more for looking a bit more accurate to the game. It is rough around the edges, but I like the vibe of this one more personally. You have your typical characters, and then you have Grade A Baby, Android 13, and Turles. I guess they're there to represent the new characters for the sequel, but it's just funny that these were the choices. Imagine they had Janeba. Son of a bitch. This one has about double the roster, over 120 characters. Granted, majority of them are transformations of the same character, but it's impressive nevertheless. It has the same modes with the exception of the story mode, which they titled Dragon Adventure.
Hey, you came!
What do you mean by that?
My friends and I have plenty of experience.
Okay, moving on.
You select the saga followed by the episode, and it takes you to this exploration map that is very similar to Budokai 3's. Sadly, it's a downgrade since you can only check out places marked on your map, while the other lets you find secret goodies not marked. At least here you get a chance to pick up stuff like Zenny, Dragon Balls, and Z items, which are back and they are more useful here. Instead of limited to level 7, this game raised them to level 20. These play a major role here as they are necessary to help you with matches in adventure mode. You get them by winning matches, completing modes, and buying them in the item shop. You can level them up after a battle, making you even stronger, almost like you're playing an RPG. It's only for the blue Z items, as yellow have fixed stats or an extra buff. Green is just characters. Purple Z items are used for Z fusion, whether it can be strong Z items and new characters. It's a clever way to unlock characters, but I wish we can unlock them by clearing the scenario they're from. Speaking of, they try to make the series and movies in order to make them more canon. Once you finish the Saiyan Saga, it then unlocks Tree of Might, then Lord Slug, and then you get to the Frieza Saga. Of course, this doesn't make sense as Piccolo is dead by this point. If they wanted to do this, they could have made it make sense canon-wise with just Goku, Gohan, and Krillin. When you enter, it'll give you a prelude to the scenario, then you roam around the world, go into a dialogue exchange, then the fight, and another dialogue scene before going back into roaming mode. The dialogue is very generic, but at least it's better since there are multiple characters instead of just 2. There are rare occasions where the scene is fully animated, and they look solid. You'll be able to equip Z items before the match, choose what characters to use, and see which ones are copyrighted or trademarked. Unlike the first game, which had only one-on-one fights, this game lets you play up to 5 characters in a match. You have to wait until the friend gauge is full to switch out. That is pretty insane. I have never played a fighting game that lets you play like this. After you clear a match, you'll earn XP, Zenny, and Z items. The higher the difficulty, the greater the reward. You can also fight folks that are not part of the story segment. That is a good way to gain more XP and money, like Yancha, Cyberman, Cell Jr., and I don't want the smoke. There are 3 stipulated matches in the adventure: winning the battle, surviving, or a special battle. Winning is pretty straightforward. Surviving is used to survive the fight in a limited amount of time, and yes, you get the clear if you're able to beat your opponent. Take that, bitch. Specials are rare with only 3 fights in the entire mode, but they are the most challenging as the enemy has a lot of buffs that will prove difficult. You don't have to win to move on, but if you do, you'll unlock a what-if scenario. These include what if Raditz and Zarbon teamed up with the heroes, and what if the Z fighters were competent in destroying Majin Buu, or at least if Vegeta was. They really stepped it up in the gameplay department. The variety in moves and combos is a nice change of pace. Instead of having separate buttons for certain moves, depending on the character, they have one button with different moves when attacking. After a few attacks, they do a flurry of kicks, a gut-wrenching attack, an air-based attack, and so on and so forth. You can also swipe underneath their feet, do some hits, kick them up, and do a follow-up combination. Some of the other moves I mentioned have their own follow-ups. If you use the same move twice, the combo ends so you can't spam the same move. It's cool you need to remember what moves to keep it going, and then you realize you're playing on the f***ing Wii!
You can use a classic or Geico controller, but it heavily implies you use the Wii and nunchuck. To activate a super, you have to hold the B and Z button and do that specific combination for that specific move. Pulling in and out the Wii remote, shaking the nunchuck twice, and push forward with the Wii remote. But most of the time, you just move the cursor to a certain direction to activate a super. It is so wanky with its controls that you're better off using a controller, although use the classic, because the GameCube doesn't have an extra Z button to do the second super attack. Although I don't own a classic, so I'm stuck with this shit.
The battle stock lets you use character's skill to give itself a buff, blow back the opponent, or power up to the max level without charging. It was introduced in the first game, and it charges up automatically over time. However, you can only have up to 3 stocks at one time. The sequel can exceed that depending on the character and can be used to transform in battle, which the first didn't. They were whatever for me, but with the transformations, it's a game changer. You can even do fusions if you select the correct characters. Budokai Tenkaichi 2 is a huge step from its predecessor. It updated the gameplay to be more action-driven. The controls are not great, but it's mostly due to the Wii. The story mode is leagues better, but it was shallow due to its predecessor. It even brought back Ultimate Battle, which instead of climbing 100 floors, it's based on a theme with a limited number of battles. I definitely prefer this over the OG since you gain experience after each battle on what score you get. Overall, this was a great sequel. It's a little rough around the edges, but it took inspiration from the original and made it better.
Now, if only they made it greater the better. Oh my god!
There are a multitude of reasons why fans consider Budokai Tenkaichi 3 the greatest Dragon Ball game ever made. The opening being one of them, I think. It's more visually pleasing than the second. The 3D models look really good as they are more in line with the in-game models with some good action to boot. The character choices are solid, having heroes and villains represent each aspect of the series, except GT apparently. We have transformation, destruction, fusion, Broly and Gogeta fighting before DBZ Broly canonized them. Hate to be that guy, but Budokai 3 did it first. I'm just saying. In the first game, it had 64 characters. The second had 120 plus characters. This has over 150 characters. You heard me. 150 characters. It has a Raleigh. It has Nova. Even has a goddamn random ass Frieza soldier. You better put some respect on Goku mid. Name another fighting game with this many characters. Oh wait.
I hope not.
So how did this one change things up? Well, for starters, it's much faster than before. There are more moves for the stun button based on the character. The follow-up attacks have more flair with changing camera angles to make them more action-packed. The clutches are easier as you shake the Wii and nunchuck vigorously instead of circling the control stick. It was a bitch in the second as the stick is on the nunchuck. You have to drop everything to do the action and afterwards regain control of the Wii remote. The stock moves are much easier to pull off. Just hold up on the D-pad Wii remote and either shake up and down or side to side to activate. Supers have you hold either left, right, or down and do a motion that corresponds it. This is way better than the second as you don't have to rely on the cursor. They also have more flair and variety with having unique moves for the character you're playing, although I do miss the multiple backshots from Bardock in the second. A Kamehameha is what you expect. Have the remote and nunchuck on one side and push forward for a boost when ready to fire. Special beam cannon is raising the remote up and push forward. It makes me feel like I'm doing these moves, unlike a certain fraud we get later. One of them I do not like is the super explosive wave. It is accurate on how to activate, but the boost with expanding both controllers makes me worried that I'll break the Wii connector in the back. Overall, the gameplay looks and feels great. It really shows the intensity and destruction the best in this one. However, I have to point this out. The audio sounds so scuffed and all over the place. Take a listen. Like, it sounds good, but at some time, it sounds retro in a bad way. Maybe it's because it's on the Wii or certain moves reach the audio peak. I don't know. I've gotten used to it after a while, but I do not remember the audio sounding so inconsistent. Before getting into story mode, I want to mention the other modes since they have differences than the previous entries. Ultimate Battle is no longer a tower/arcade mode. Instead, it has Sim Dragon, which is like a mini RPG mode. You choose which character and what you want to do each day. Train offense and or defense with a cost of HP, travel to pick up items or train with a mentor, or rest to gain back health. After 10 days, you fight a boss. If successful, you do it again with increased max stats and items. It's a neat little mode if you're into this. Mission 100 is 100 battles that have you face characters categorized by the team. You have to fight with a limited number of characters or Dragon Points. Dragon Points, or DP, are assigned based on how strong the character you're picking, ranging from Hercule with a DP of 1 and SSJ for Gogeta with a DP of 10. I don't have this, but if you unlock every character, you'll get Survival, which is basically endless mode. Beat as many opponents as you can until you're dead. Okay, what else is there? Online? You really think I got a Wii to play online? It's on the Nintendo console. It was probably shit anyways. World Tournament has 5 tourneys that if you're playing by yourself, you can play only one at a time. It changes based on the time shown. Not sure how it changes, but I believe 5 minutes of playing is equivalent to 1 hour in-game. The difficulty seems random, but I think it's based on the latest you can play it. I don't fucking know. It's been over a decade. Evolution Z is more dumbed down here, which I'm sad about. They were fun in the sequel. I mean, I understand having it limited to adding more skills. Character Encyclopedia is hilarious because Chi-Chi is just berating everyone and their transformations, calling them delinquents. Imagine if more characters did this. Now it's time for the main event, Dragon History. Tenkaichi 3's story mode. It's separated into sagas with Saiyan, Frieza, Android, Majin Buu, GT, OG, Special, and What Ifs. They're pretty much straightforward except specials, which include specials like Bardock and the movies. They have fewer battles than the second, but they're longer with who is in it and how it's presented. The presentation is not great. It's just 2 characters standing around talking. Sometimes more characters talk. Other than that, nothing worth noting. And then the fight starts. I much prefer Tenkaichi 2 as it's better paced with using the in-game idle animations, getting to the next dialogue by pressing a button, and having actual animations occasionally. Tenkaichi 3 has its moments. While the fight's going on, it'll indicate you to press 1 to move the scene along with changing characters or using their super/ultimate. The gameplay does the heavy lifting with the story, which is cool, but I wish there was more flair with it. Doesn't have they reuse lines for every game.
I can tell just by looking, you can't beat me. I can tell just by looking, you can't beat me. I can tell just by looking, you can't beat me.
I'm gonna shut you up once and for all. I'm gonna shut you up once and for all. I'm gonna shut you up once and for all.
How about you shut up? There's only 4 what if fights, but they're pretty clever. Goku versus Orale, 16 versus 8 and Kid Goku, the Saiyans versus Frieza Force, and Devilman versus Frieza Force. Yes, there is a character called Devilman who is from OG Dragon Ball. Speaking of Dragon Balls, I prefer finding them in this one. In the previous games, you have to dash through a mountain or building and a 3D Dragon Ball appears and you need to retrieve it to get the item. The problem is, the map is so wonky with its placement and trying to get the thing is another challenge in and of itself. It feels like a chore. The rewards didn't help either as it's just Z items. Granted, they're powerful or can make powerful ones, but I wish there was more variety. Here, you either get Shenron, Purunga, or Red Shenron and get currency, Z items, characters, and or maps. I'm glad there is variety here, but who you summon is random, so just reset if you need a specific unlockable. It's alright, got Kid Chi-Chi. They added a kid version of her, but not the grown-up one. You also get characters by winning a specific tournament in a specific difficulty. Now you see why I don't have all the characters? I feel like I'm only scratching the surface on what this game offers. It's been a while since I played it, and It was a blast going through it again. Its story presentation is lame, and going through the lengths to unlock characters is tedious. However, the gameplay is very action-packed with its plethora of combos and great-looking supers. Some do have the basic high-speed rush and full-power energy wave moves, but at least they are unique to how the character performs them. The modes are more engaging and fun. The number of characters is insane, different variations of them, characters from the series making their first appearance, and having a character from another series Akira Toriyama made before Dragon Ball was even a thought. This is one of the best games based on this beloved franchise. It would not have been possible, though, if the first two weren't successful in their own right. The first Budokai Tenkaichi has some rough patches. Playing it now would be a waste in my opinion, but it did lay the blueprint on what the series will be going forward. The second one expanded on the concept immensely, adding more characters, having more interactive story/adventure, and offering content that is easy and convenient. All of these made Budokai Tenkaichi 3 the final form of the series, the pinnacle of all Dragon Ball games. It's a shame that Bandai Namco never made another game like this again. Sure, we got some great games in the meantime, but I wish they gave it another shot. Hell, fans made their own Budokai Tenkaichi 4 and added characters from Super. It's crazy how much dedication and passion fans are for this series. So maybe, just maybe, they could try expanding it one more time. If only, right?
It's so beautiful!